I was having a discussion with some of us, and some of the other backroom staff, right, before we started this discussion. So it was more about like in Nigeria or in developing countries, right, generally, is that like do you feel like the democratic system basically is like the ideal one to go by? Or will it be better if you have something like a benevolent, I'm using the quote of the person right now, like benevolent fascist, right? In the sense of, let me explain what a
What of benevolent fascist?
yeah. Let me explain what benevolent fascist is. So a benevolent fascist, right? Pretty weird term, but yeah, a benevolent fascist is like a fascist who actually has the interest of the people at heart, but he also has the maximum rule of power, right? So he has the interest of the people at heart, but he also has the ability, like the full ability to do it. He doesn't need to go to House of Assembly and then the opposition will try to hold him back. Those things that happen in democracy, right? Opposition will be opposing your views and all of that. He can instrument the will of people uh, pretty much instantly,
I
right?
think I want to hear who will have
So
your
I
views.
missed that. So let me make a clarification on that. So um like I said, I mean it's clear from the discussion we've been having that um the system of government or looking at the will of the people. Now we're talking about democracy, we've moved it on to democracy. It's
Yeah.
clear to see that there are so many factors that influence, you know, the mindset of people and what they desire, their wills, and how it develops. The protest in Kenya, even though it's not very developed, the protest in Kenya was due to economics, basically. The protest in the UK was due to social changes and maybe a little bit of economics also,
Yeah.
like the native population feeling that other people are taking their jobs and stuff. So it goes a long way to say that in and these countries operate democratic systems, right? It goes a long way to say that in a democratic system, the societal changes and the economic changes they tend to influence the will of the people so greatly that the people do not even think about the consequences of what their actions would be before they react. Now, in a developing economy or in an emerging society, emerging market, or as the economists will call countries that are still developing, is that something that should be allowed to reign? I do not believe that is what should be allowed to reign. Now, who is a benevolent fascist or who is a benevolent dictator? A benevolent dictator does not have the interest or the will of the people at heart. That's one thing I have to. He has the will and the interest of the state. Now, I tend to always refer to the Chinese society when I make these arguments with people, when I have this discussion with people, and I see a lot of policies that not necessarily a leader. I said them, you know, um it's majorly like a minority rule, even though like the leader, the general secretary, still has the ultimate power and
Mm,
tells the party in which direction to lean. But he has a lot of advisors, and then you see goals that are set for the communities, and you cultivate the interest of the people in that goal. Okay, China wants to be a hub for high-tech manufacturing. What do? You open, free trade zones and um, tech cities, and then you incentivize people with subsidies to invest in those in those areas. Now, is that what the people actually want? Is that what they actually dream of? Some of them might just want, okay, they want food on the table, but they don't see it that, okay, if we invest in high-tech manufacturing, which is going to be like the fourth industrial revolution, that will take us on top of the economic food chain, and then would be able to export. So when I make that statement, I tend to look at um, things like that, and from my thought.
Yeah,
I
okay,
think
so,
I actually believe that,
Can I
a
yeah, go ahead.
democratic
yeah,
fascist
I
sometimes.
want to poke holes into your thoughts.
Oh, very
And
good.
also I want to point out that you don't need a benevolent fascist, as you said, to be able to achieve some things. Now, let me give you an example. America knew that they wanted to become the industrialization of the world. Let me just put it that way. Right from the times of Thomas Edison, and when they were cultivating and whatever they were doing, they ensured that it was done on a large scale. They didn't need to have one ruler that makes all the decisions for that to happen. Do you understand? See, it's a function of the quality of the people. Do you understand?
Okay.
The quality of the leader. Let me put it that way. Now, let me say something. See, you can't entrust one person with all of the power and hope that he becomes good or he continues to be good. See, someone can be good, someone can start out good, and you look at it and say, oh, this guy is very good. Then that's why there's an addict that says that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Do you understand? If you say, oh, he's a benevolent fascist, then what happens when he no longer feels like to become a benevolent fascist? Then that becomes a problem to the people. Do you understand? See, look at now. Rwanda. I think it's Rwanda. Yes.
Yes.
Rwanda has had
Paul Kagame,
yes, for how long now? Now
20 plus years.
yes. Now look at Rwanda is a country that you say averagely is good. Yes. It is a clean city. People follow the rule of law and all of that. But Rwanda is not doing extremely well in terms of economics. Now, you might argue and say, okay, but the people are living okay and all of that. But is that what Rwanda is supposed to do? Now, you're not putting into consideration that although I'm not relating that is what being a benevolent fascist is about. But let me just finish now.
Yeah.
So before you come and say that, oh, being a benevolent fascist will help listen or will help create the will of the people, I think that is like totally wrong. I think people still need to be able to choose who they want to be the leader. Although I'm still going to go into how emotions affect all of that, but I think that if I want to say something, so let me know
Yeah,
when
yeah,
if I
so, so,
ask you, then you then maybe we'll get to it.
On this topic of fascism is different from dictatorship. That's one thing I always want to establish. Like fascism also works in a in a situation where you are playing to the crowd. So
Yeah, like
so
Mussolini.
yes, like Mussolini. So you always have like a radicalized set of people that might be in the minority, but they are so loud and so charged that whatever you are saying, you might not even believe what you are saying, but they believe what you are saying. It's what they want to hear. So that in itself is the root of fascism. So you play on people's emotion and people's sentiment to implement your own ideas. That's the rule of fascism. That is the bedrock of fascism.
But you know there is
Now,
force in it.
of course,
Okay,
yes, there's
so
force,
continue.
of course.
I just wanted to point
Yes,
that out.
of
It's not
course.
just about playing in the
Yes,
in the will of the people.
yes,
Even if the will of the people don't agree with you, there is still force in
yes, there
fascism.
is force in
yeah, but
fascism,
okay, yeah,
but what usually happens is that in fascism there is usually this kind of nationalistic idea that is being pushed by the person in power. So he does it he makes it look like it's for the states, and then he might not have a group or core of radicalists that are always chanting his name or trying to stay on his ideas. Why a dictatorship could be anything. It could be a military dictatorship. You might just come into power with force, take over, and just make decrease. Abacha was not, I won't say he's a fascist, but he's a dictator.
He's a
Mussolini,
fascist
no,
and
it
a
wasn't
no, he
a
dictator.
wasn't a
fascist.
fascist. Abacha is not someone that plays to the crowd or tries to, rile up
It
something.
wasn't
He
even like
just,
nationalistic.
this is
It
my
was
word,
just,
this is my
yeah.
law.
Well,
That's
well, some people that want military rule back in Nigeria would say that Abacha rule was one of the best, and they will not mind having
Some
Yes,
people are
I'm
disillusioned.
serious. I've seen people say that they would prefer to have an Abacha rule than APC rule.
They are disillusioned.
Let us
Let me
and you're saying no. Is it no in terms of like you don't agree with it, or no, in terms of like there are not people that want it.
No, they don't want it based on the fact that they like his policies or
Yeah.
philosophy or whatever he's saying. What they just want is probably an idea that military brings
They are
some kind of,
yeah, they are fed up with like the dragging
yeah,
nature of
they are,
democracy.
yes,
Democracy is very
yes,
I just
it's
have to
very
because like it's
slow, time
dragging nature.
taking, expensive, and
Let,
all of
let's
that.
Let
go.
me, Abdi made a point about, societies. You made a point about the US and, their initial development. But I would like to give a rebuttal to that and say that in nation building,
Okay,
one system does not fit all.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Now, when we look at the US, when did the US become the major economic power of the world, and how did it achieve that status? Now, the US had cheap labor through slavery,
Okay.
and
Likewise, Portugal. Likewise,
they became they
Britain.
became economic
Britain.
powerhouses. They
Yeah.
became economic powerhouses, and their influence still on ground up till now. So the thing is, when you look at those societies, you have to look at your own society and look at where you are at before you decide. Now, in the US of the 17th century, or let's say even the 20th century, when they ascended to be the most industrialized nation on earth. Now, they made some moves that were not even that were not democratic. Now, the rule of the rule that was being applied to everyone, was it a rule that was based on the will of the people? No, it was more like a um, should I say like a kind of fascist kind of system? Not really fascist in that there was one leader that controlled everyone, but those rules played to the white population of the United States. It didn't really consider
There
the
was
means
it
of
was literally the whites or
But
no other
yes,
person.
yes.
but
So
you,
it
I
didn't
have
play
to,
to
that's the way the world was
At that time.
yes,
But
not
yes.
necessarily
see, but
because
right now, see, what I'm saying is this. See, try and understand that you can have a benevolent fascist. So you say, right? And that benevolent fascist can decide to no longer be benevolent, can decide to use force all through. And also, I am telling you that you don't need to have a benevolent fascist to have a good leadership um or a good term of government. Do you understand? There can be someone, a government or a president that says the only thing I want to do in my 4-year term is to ensure that everyone has economic liberation and set goals to ensure that those things happen.
But the problem with that is, how do we achieve this government statute? Because, like I said, we see developed societies where the will of the people during elections, even with their so-called economic development and social cohesion that they've achieved to a particular extent, they are still swindled by changes in economics, changes in social
yeah.
issues, and now a emerging country, one of the characteristics of those kind of countries, like we see in our own country, is high societal violence. People do not even, they do not see themselves as one. So how do you rise above that? Societies that have, that are in advanced stages of this kind of system of government and something.
I
When we
think
see
I think we're
them
fine
being
because
swindled
Yes,
this
by,
has
yes,
been
yes.
itching.
so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's one thing. That's my point.
Okay, on this discussion, I think as you said, it has to do with different societies and what they want as at that time. Like personally, I'm always someone that will always support a democratic setting. I just feel it is the least worst of all, and by far.
100%. By
But
far.
you know the thing with human beings is that the normal in all of is democracy is actually a recent concept. Like the modern day democracy is still very recent. It's like 200 years. So, but the normal human being in almost every society, what he just wants is for things to work.
Yes.
So most times he doesn't even care what system of government it
Yeah,
is, as
yeah.
long as it's working.
Yeah.
So if you ask the average Nigerian now that, will you rather have someone that will stay 30 years in power, but he's going to bring electricity, economic stability, jobs, and once in a while you hear that he imprisoned this person unjustly, he imprisoned this person unjustly? I'm telling you, people will tell you yes.
Yeah.
They'll tell you yes.
But wait,
Just-
they'll tell you
They'll
yes
tell-
until they get into
Yes, until
But
they get to those economic reforms, and then they are now financially stable.
like
Then
what happened with Gaddafi.
their needs begin to change.
Like what happened with Gaddafi.
Their priorities begin to change. They become more knowledgeable. They become more economically
They grow out of
prosperous,
that
and then they now
system.
grow out of that system. So that's what happens in China, for example, in the 60s, 70s, when they went through the Great Depression and people were starving. All they would probably have wanted is for somebody that just wants to, like, that will put food on their table, that will make sure that people are not just starving. So, and that's what probably the Chinese Communist Party has done now. So if you ask the average Chinese, what he sees as, the CCP living is that they might go back to the days of starvation. Or the average Russian, like, they tried democracy for a while when the Soviet Union collapsed, and Boris Yeltsin, and it was a total mess. And that's also because historically they've been always led by, a
Dictator.
strong man, a supreme leader, one strong party. So, and someone like Putin, as much as they know he's corrupt, they know his excesses, they are willing to tolerate him because he's at least able to guarantee them some
but
sort
would you
of
say Russia
stability and
does
some sort
done
of international standing.
Russia does what we
they
call,
conduct elections?
bro. That's just
Obviously,
that's how fascism
what
works now.
Conduct elections.
yes,
That's
that's
how
why I said
fascism works now.
fascism.
They'll just do the drama. We call it drama
But he has
elections.
been ruling for so
made it-
long. Yeah.
you made a point, Ifeanyi. You made a point about democracy being a new system of government, but I would disagree with that.
Why?
It was the Greeks that
Yes,
invented
that's
it
why I said
Yeah.
modern day
years ago.
democracy.
And if you read into the history of democracy, now there was a time in which the dominant form of democracy was direct democracy, where everyone, literally everyone, had a say in each policy. But the modern day democracy is more of a representative democratic system where you elect leaders. Now, there was a reason why that was chosen. It was to curb the excesses of the people. Now, as solution, this passive solution, has it really worked? Has it really curbed the excesses of the people? Because people can be swindled by so many things. No, it hasn't. No, we have to tell ourselves the truth here. It has not done that. So for your concern about a benevolent dictator or a benevolent fascist kind of system, in yes, each society needs to realize where they are at and what is needed to develop their nation. There's a reason why there was a military rule of Babangida, who was to lead a transitional government and conduct elections and all those things. Now, the society has to decide when this is our current situation. We need this. In the end, it will birth this. Now, the English were colonialist, and then they had a strict form of government. The king was you cannot disobey the king. But at some point, they got that level of development and that level of you know nation building. They got to a state, and then society naturally transitioned into that. Now you cannot be a very very poor society, even much more worse than those countries that are in that stuff, and say you do not want to go through that stage where you have one person who is, who has a will of the nation or the state.
I would
So-
say we have gone through it, but let's
So
So,
that's what I feel.
yeah, so I think we've circled around the point quite extensively. But I think the deductions that I'm getting from the discussion, right, is that each society has to introspect and find out what stage of their development are they in. right? And Josh may say that at a particular stage, you may require a benevolent,
honest introspection.
honest
See,
introspection.
irrespective
Let me
of what
round
our
up. Let me see what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
at a particular stage, you may require a benevolent fascist or dictator. And then at certain stages, the people may grow out of that system, and then you can then transition into a stable form of democracy.
Well, what I'm saying is this. See, I would say Nigeria has gone through it, right? Well, let me tell you why. Because we've had military rulers, yes, who have been, some of them fascists, some of them dictators, but we
But,
have
but are
gone
they
through
being
it.
benevolent dictators?
Benevolent
Because
dictators.
most
See,
dictators don't turn out to be
they don't
benevolent.
turn out to be
You just
benevolent.
have
There's no
one
telling.
of
See,
one of
even
10,000.
fascists, even fascists don't exactly turn out to be benevolent. They only
But okay.
save, they only enrich their own friends who might maybe distribute the wealth across this thing. But let us not deceive ourselves.
So well,
See,
okay, I want to ask a question.
yeah,
Okay, this is not necessarily a fascist; it's more of a communist. But Xi Jinping, right, in China,
Yeah.
and he ushered in this age of transformation of China. He was
Okay.
part of people. Maybe he was not the initiator, but he
Yeah,
has certainly like exponentially helped to expand their economy.
yeah.
So will you call such a dictator like a benevolent dictator?
Number
Will you
one, I
call him a
wouldn't.
benevolent dictator?
Number one, I won't even call him a dictator.
I don't understand.